Hi guys, welcome back to At Home with Holly. My name is Holly. I'm so glad that you're here. So today we are preserving up some of the tomatoes that have been in my window ripening. We're gonna make a roasted tomato basil soup because we have basil that is fresh right now. So we wanna harvest it at the peak of freshness and that way we can taste it all winter long. Tomato basil soup is actually a soup that my daughter and I both will eat. She doesn't love a lot of soups, but if I puree this one and make it, I like it a little more rustic. She likes it like super smooth. So I'm gonna make it super smooth today. So we're gonna make up some roasted tomato and basil soup. And if there's any extra tomatoes that aren't fitting in what we need for the recipe, then I'm gonna go ahead and get them a little char and blister them and can up some more fire roasted tomatoes because I love vegetable soup with fire roasted chunky tomatoes. So, all right, let's get going. Okay guys, the weather has turned. It was in the 90s and it was hot, and now it is 70s, 60s, basically high 60s, low 70s. It's supposed to get a high of like 74 today, and I'm here for it because I love fall. I love fall. So let's get some basil. It says supposed to get 2 cups, tightly packed. That's what we got. Let's go inside. Okay, so ignore the drying clay projects. We need to get 8 cups of broth. So I've got all kinds of broths in here. I've got chicken, turkey, beef, pork, but I think I'm going to use let me see. I think I'm gonna grab some chicken and a mix of chicken and turkey for today. Okay, so we've got 2 pints of turkey, 2 pints of chicken broth. We've got, instead of doing just some minced up garlic, I actually grabbed a thing of confit garlic, which is in avocado oil. I roasted it in avocado oil, so gonna use that as another like layer of flavor in the soup. So roasted garlic. It calls for white wine. I'm a red wine drinker. I don't really drink that much wine, but when I do, it's a red. So I had to get a little thing of dry white wine. I've got garlic flavored avocado oil that I got when I roasted my garlic, and I've got tomatoes, and we've got basil, and the last ingredient that we need is some onion. So I'm gonna go to the garage and grab some onion really quickly. I'm gonna see if I have any diced already in my freezer that need used up. And if I have any of those, I'll use those first. Otherwise, I'll grab some of the ones that we harvested the other day and are drying. Okay, looks like we have 2 cups diced onion right here. So I'll just go ahead and use this. Okay, so we've got 16 pounds of tomatoes. We've got salt, pepper, avocado oil. We have white wine, broth, basil, garlic, onion. Let's get to roasting these tomatoes. So since these are still frozen, but the tomatoes need time to roast in the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and put the frozen confit garlic and the 4 cups of diced onions into this pot. I'm not gonna turn it on though. I'm just gonna let it sit in there and kind of thaw out while the tomatoes are roasting. That is 4 cups of frozen diced onions and that is a little half-pint container of confit garlic, and that is deliciousness. I know it only says like 8 cloves of garlic but in the recipe, but I really think you should measure garlic and vanilla with your heart. So that's what my heart wanted. Roasted garlic, yes. So these cherry tomatoes, I'm just gonna put those on. I'm not gonna have or do anything to them. I might just take out the core basically of these other ones, and I might not, we'll see. We're gonna use an immersion blender at the end and just run all this right through, but we are gonna take the time to take the skins off after they're roasted, so we'll see. We'll see how long it takes. This is gonna taste really good though. It's gonna be worth it. So I did come to the conclusion that we're gonna run all of this through the sauce maker. But on the way there, I was thinking maybe I should just squeeze out some of the seeds. Maybe I could just pull off the skins, maybe. And then I was like, nope, we're gonna roast them all, and then we're gonna run them all through that sauce maker and make them super, super smooth. Okay, we got them all crammed on there, all besides like 2 little tomatoes that I put back in the freezer. So we're gonna get these in the oven, roasting. They're gonna go in for, let me check my recipe. They're gonna go in 375 for about 45 minutes. And then I've just been going back and forth. At first I was like kind of squeezing them and getting out some of the seeds and stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I might just run these through the food mill thing right before I add them to the pot. So I think I'll do that. Oven is not on yet, so I'm gonna turn it on now. So I'm gonna leave them in there for like an hour instead of 45 minutes because preheating, I get it, but not for this. So while we're waiting for the tomatoes to roast, I figured I would go ahead and get the basil off the stems. Normally I'm a little more careful when I harvest basil, and I try to make sure that I, only pluck it from the armpits to make sure that it's gonna grow back, and be even bushier. But I did that all season long as I was harvesting for either fresh eating or for drying. And now the only 2 things I have left to do are this tomato basil soup, which I'm doing a double batch today, and then really just making some more pesto for the freezer. And I've got plenty out there to do this recipe and that recipe. So I was not very careful when I was harvesting basil, but I think I've said it in previous videos, you really want to go, when you harvest your basil, you really want to harvest it from a joint that is going to grow back. If you harvest it right above the armpit joint, it's going to grow back, even bushier for you. So normally that's what I try to do, but today we're just doing this. Okay, friends, they have been in there for the recommended amount of time. Oh, they're good. They smell really good. Lovely. Lovely. I'm gonna put these over here. Okay, friends, I changed my mind again. I'm gonna get the food mill. I really want it to be a nice project. So nice product. So I'm gonna get the food mill, run this through really quick. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna get started on the next part, which is on the stove. I'm gonna turn on the stove pot that has the onions and garlic in it and get those sweating and getting nice and soft for us. So this is what we're starting with. Got the flame going now. We'll get that started cooking down. Okay, so we are the onions and garlic has softened. We're gonna add salt, pepper, and then we're gonna add the wine and let it reduce for 10 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and add those things right now. Okay, let's get this processing. Okay, that's what we're looking like. Let's get it all together. All right, friends, this has reduced. So, thank you guys, Jamie. The wine has reduced. It is time to add in the broth and the tomatoes and the basil. Smells incredible. So it smells amazing already. We're gonna let this come back up to a boil and then let it simmer for, I'll read the recipes, either 10 or 20 minutes. And then we're gonna use our immersion blender to get it nice and smooth. And then we'll get it in our jars. Okay guys, this is what we're looking at. It's been 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get my immersion blender, zhuzh this up, and then give it a taste test for salt, pepper, flavor, that kind of stuff. And then we'll get it canned up. And we have our canner getting ready for us over there. It's all coming together. That's really good. I think it needs a little more salt. All right, times two. Oh my gosh. That's really good. That's really good. Okay. There's still a little bit of texture to it, and I'm sitting here wondering whether or not Olivia is gonna eat it with that little bit of texture. Kids, man. I would eat it just like this and be like, this is the best tomato soup I've ever had. I might judge it one more time just to get it extra smooth for her. Okay, I've got 15 jars. I don't think I'm gonna need this many, but I've got 15 jars. Should be 2 loads worth in the pressure canner. I think I only need 12 or 13, but I got 15 clean jars ready. I'm gonna go get lids and bands. Then I'm gonna bring the soup over here, ladle it in. I think I'm gonna run it through like a mesh screen. I judged it one more time. I'm just gonna see how many chunks go through, and then I might not do it. I don't know. I'm just trying to make this as smooth as possible. It's important to me that we eat yummy food. It's important to me that we eat healthy food. And by we, I mean my daughter and I. And she is 7, and she will eat a lot of things that a lot of 7-year-olds won't eat. But she does have a texture thing that she wants her soups to be really smooth. She wants sauces. She doesn't like chunky things. So I am just trying to make sure that we have something that is homegrown and that we did together, but that also she will eat. And not just like move around in the bowl. All you parents out there, you know what I'm talking about. So I am going to run it through a little screen, and if not much comes out, then I'll just go ahead and put it in here, but I'll give it one more try to make it super smooth for her. So let's get going. All right, you guys, here is what we got. Let's go ahead and get it in our jars so we can get it processing. Okay, we're going for 1-inch head space. Oh, I forgot I was gonna run it through a strainer. Let me grab that. Okay, it's pretty much just the basil left. We're just gonna go ahead and fill these jars. That's a lot of work I don't want to do. All right, so let's get to filling. Okay, let's get these in the canner. Let's get some jars. So I'm gonna tell it that I added the jars. It's gonna go ahead and warm up the jars and the water, and then it's gonna get to pressure. It's gonna tell me what to do next and beep. Once it's vented it's gonna vent for 10 minutes. Once it's vented, I will switch this little dial from vent to can, and then it will process for the 50 minutes that I set it for. And then I'll bring you back at the end so you can see what they look like. Hey guys, so it's actually a couple days later and yesterday I made another batch of spaghetti sauce, and I read the comments after the really supportive comments after my last video about making the spaghetti sauce, and somebody had posted to let the fresh herbs simmer with the veg and before I run it through the food mill. And I had been using the dried herbs that we grew after we went through the food mill. Anyway, just to give it a little more flavor, because sometimes when you can with fresh herbs, it changes the flavor, but simmering with it would give them that flavor. You know what I'm saying? So I did that. Oh, it's so good. And then that got me on a kick of, yeah, I need to use up all this basil while it's still fresh. So today we're going to be making pesto. Lots of pesto to use up all the basil that's left in my garden before we get like a freeze or something. We should be another like month before the freeze, but I don't have any other thing to use with the basil right now. So I'm like, might as well use it up while it's like abundant and fresh. And I do have other basil plants just in case I needed a little something, but anyway, so we're gonna do basil today. And then if we get time, I also want to refresh my front porch because the petunias that are out there are dead. And I got mums. I actually got mums a while ago and they died because I didn't plant them. So I got more mums, and I'm gonna plant them today in my front porch planters. We're gonna plant them together so that they don't die. So you guys, I'm really good at growing vegetables and fruit, but flowers are not my forte. So we're learning this together. So I've got a neighbor that's an awesome gardener with flowers and landscape stuff. So she gives me lots of tips. So we're gonna try this again and see if I don't murder them. Okay, let's get started today. Okay, so here's what we got going on. We have the dead mums that I bought, but they're not really dead though, so I'm gonna try to keep them alive. The lady at the plant place saw that I was a sucker and she gave me a half-dead plant so I could bring it back to life. We've got fertilizer. We've got a pot that I need to watch out for the one dead one. We have 2 that are healthy, 2 that are dead. These all need ripped out, and 2 more healthy, 2 more dead. I am leaving my baskets as they are, so we're just refreshing these 2 containers, and we're ignoring any weeds or anything else because I'm a single mom and we do one thing at a time. So let's get started.
So all I'm doing here is I left the existing potting soil that had been used for the petunias in there, and then I just added some fresh potting soil and kind of mixed it together a little bit. And on this first little planter, I first started out like digging what I thought was the appropriate sized hole for the mum that I bought. Oh, here I am. I'm kind of scratching the roots a little bit just to wake it up before I put it in. And so I'm just kind of mixing the old and the new potting soil together to kind of freshen it up. Um, I did forget to put the trifecta fertilizer in, so I will go back right after I plant this one and mix that in and kind of scratch it into the surface of the soil. And I've talked before about trifecta. I love trifecta. I love it for all the things that I plant, and I get that from MI Gardener. But then what I started to do after I got to the second bedding, you'll see, is I actually used the empty planter and kind of put it in there so that I knew exactly how much room. There's me adding the trifecta. So that I actually knew how much room that the mum was going to need before I put these in. So just a little quick refresh. You don't have to empty out completely all of your potting soil. You just have to mix in some fresh life to it. So whether that means mixing in some fertilizer, mixing in some fresh potting soil to kind of mix it all up together, just something to revitalize it, but you don't need to throw it away. You can keep using the same mix every time. And then also for your raised beds and all your flowers, miraculously, it just kind of like the soil just kind of evaporates. It just settles, not evaporates, but it settles, it blows away, all this stuff. So you can just keep topping it off every year and you're good to go. But it is kind of crazy how you fill things up to the top, and by the time they settle and the wind and the water and all this stuff happens, it is definitely a lot less full than when you first made it. But here you see when I get to the second bed, I'm like, oh, this is smart. I should just dig out a hole, put the actual pot inside of it, and then I know how much room I need and whether I need to dig out more and that kind of stuff. So we learn as we go. And I definitely am learning more about flowers and that kind of stuff. But, um, you know, it's a journey. It's a journey. And I'm here for it. And I'm glad you guys are here with me.
Okay, so we got these potted. The one I'm trying to nurse back to health. These guys. And then if you have any suggestions on these, I deadheaded these first two because I thought, well, maybe that'll work. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'm killing them. I should stop. So any suggestions, please let me know. Now let's go make some pesto. Okay, so since it was before lunchtime, I went ahead and did the front porch refresh before we made this pesto because I wanted to get those things planted before it was like the heat of the day. So luckily my porch gets, my house is north facing, so my backyard is south facing, which is great for the garden. And my front yard, those plants will get some shade. So they'll get a little bit of sun and then shade for the rest of the afternoon so they can settle in nicely. But time to make some pesto. So pesto is super easy. It takes basil, Parmesan cheese, garlic, and we're gonna use the confit garlic because I feel like doing that, which is just roasted garlic in olive oil. And then some nuts. You can use pine nuts, you can use walnuts because pine nuts are super expensive. And I kind of feel like walnuts are actually like what I like better in pesto. If you have pine nuts, use pine nuts too. But I like to like slather pesto on stuff, and it would take a lot of pine nuts to make the amount of pesto I like to make throughout the year. So I've already made a couple batches, but I want to go ahead and get the rest of this used up. I did end up trimming a lot of it like in a harsh way, but some of it I did actually cut like at the right above the joints so that if it wants to make more basil for the next month, it'll just be bushy and lovely. So okay, let's go ahead and get this basil washed up so that we can make our pesto. We're gonna need our food processor too, so I'm gonna grab that. Okay, so I've got the inside of my salad spinner here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pick off all the leaves, put them in here, give them a rinse, spin them, and then we're gonna make some pesto. Okay, so I'm gonna put in some nuts, some walnuts. By the way, if you get nuts, you need to, and you don't want to go, and you're not going to be able to go through them all right away. Sorry, I'm talking while I'm thinking about something else. So if you're going to have nuts and you're not going to go through them all the way, just go ahead and throw this bag in the freezer because there's oil on these and the oil will go rancid, but if you keep them in the freezer, much longer shelf life. So I'm going to do nuts, and then there's no, I'm sure there are recipes, but I'm not following necessarily a recipe. I'm just going based on having done this a lot. But okay, nuts, cheese, garlic, lots of garlic. And again, this was in the freezer, but these are roasted, yummy garlics. Roasted them in avocado oil. They're so good. They smell so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm gonna put in this whole jar. And then I'm gonna get some basil in there too. Okay, so then we're just gonna stuff this with basil. Might have to do 2 batches, and that's okay. Add a little bit of salt. Not too much because the Parmesan cheese is kind of salty. And then a good amount of black pepper. I'm gonna get this kind of mixing up together first, and then I'm gonna grab some avocado oil. I'm actually gonna use the garlic flavored stuff that I made when I roasted that garlic. And I'm gonna drizzle some in. Probably should have done the basil first, but that's okay. It'll all get in there. Once it gets going, then I'll drizzle in some oil. Actually, I might drizzle in some oil to get it going. We'll see. I think I'm gonna add in a little more. I might try to make this all into, we'll see. We'll see. I'm thinking about maybe jarring up 1 or 2 jars of this. Maybe however, well, we'll see how it makes. And then I might make a pesto butter with whatever's left over, because I really like to just take pesto butter and put it on salmon and then roast it in the oven, and the pesto butter kind of melts over it and poaches it. You know that's good. We'll see. Couple little leaves got caught in my cap. Wow, this smells good. Still got a leaf that's got to go through. Definitely Definitely needs more salt. Yeah, it's so good. Yep. This one leaf does not want to chop up. That's so good. Okay. Let me get some jars and we'll go ahead and get this ready for the freezer. So I grabbed some jars that I got, I think like 2020 or something like that, but they're junk and I wouldn't recommend like pressure canning or canning something with them, but we're not really canning today. We're just filling up canning jars to put in the freezer. And then I've got some, I save all my lids so that for things like this, where when you dehydrate herbs or are gonna put something in the freezer, you can just, I run through the dishwasher and then you can just use them again. So I'll cross off what these used to be as we see how many jars we're gonna use. Beautiful. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and use 1/2 pint jars because that's about how much I would need. Well, I guess it depends on what I was making, but I'm gonna do them in 1/2 pint jars. And if I need more than that, I can just grab 2. Okay, you know what I might do? I might take what's left and make some pesto butter. So that way I have it ready and I don't have to, whoops, so good. That way I have it ready and I don't have to take a jar of pesto, take a stick of butter, melt it, all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna grab some butter. Okay, so I've got my favorite butter, grass-fed, grass-finished cow butter. It's so good. This will change the way you feel about butter. Even if you think you love butter. This butter is so good. Anyway, as your standard, of course. So I'm going to, and I keep my butter in the freezer, and then I just pull it out like a block at a time and keep it in the fridge. But I'm going to soften this up for like 20 seconds in the microwave. Not sure if we'll need this half yet, but in the meantime, I'll get some bands for these guys. And you can absolutely freeze in mason jars. You just have to leave room for expansion. So I think we're good. Probably could have left a little more. I might actually scoop just like a tablespoon out, just to make sure it's like right down here. This one looks good. This one looks good. Okay, so all 3 of these labeled, ready to go in my freezer, which is handy because I just took out a few jars of the confit garlic. So now we're gonna get this into the food processor and make this into pesto butter. Okay, yeah, I need the other half. Still very, very green. Not that you don't want it to be green, but you do want it to kind of be butter. I guess I didn't soften that one. We'll see how it goes. Okay, you guys, whipped pesto butter. Can you say yum? You can spread this on, like I said, you can poach some salmon with this basically. You can spread it on toast, like spread it on a loaf of sourdough or French bread or whatever you want to make some like garlic basil bread. Oh my gosh, you could do this with some diced up tomatoes for bruschetta on top of, like you could smear this on the bread, make garlic bread toast with it, essentially pesto toast with it. I'm excited to have this. Okay, so normally what I do is put this in the fridge to have it get a little more solid, and then I'll either scoop it like with a cookie scoop to make little like pucks, if you will, or I'll put it in a log of parchment paper and then just slice it up however much I want. Let me think about how I want to do that one. But I'm excited that we got all these amazing basil projects done this week. I just want to let you guys know that I appreciate you so much. And I'm gonna put this in the fridge to cool. And then I'll decide if I want to do it in the roll or if I want to do it in little pucks. And I'll take you guys along and show you the final product of that as I end here. But I'm gonna wrap this video up here, and I just want to say thank you guys so much because I appreciate you. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys spending this time with me as we're figuring this stuff out. And remember, if you have any suggestions on my mums on what to do to keep them alive, let me know, or any other suggestions on anything. So I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see you next time, friend. Bye.